Thanksgiving is a season when hearts slow down long enough to remember what truly matters. Families gather, prayers rise, and gratitude softens the weight of the year. But for Theodore Hale, this holiday didn't bring warmth. It exposed everything he had lost. While the world prepared tables filled with love and belonging, he stood alone, surrounded by the cold echo of the luxury he once chose over the woman who prayed for him. It was on a quiet Thanksgiving week, when the streets smelled of cinnamon, fallen leaves, and second chances, that God began rewriting a story pride had destroyed. Because when life strips away everything we thought we needed, gratitude becomes the doorway for God to rebuild what was never meant to be broken. And on this Thanksgiving night, you will witness the moment a proud man realizes that the love he replaced was the very blessing God intended to restore. A journey of regret, mercy, and redemption wrapped in the warm glow of a season made for forgiveness. Stay with me until the end, because the miracle God brings into this story will touch your heart in ways you do not expect. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a story of redemption that strengthens your faith. Thanksgiving season had just begun when Theodore Hale made the choice that would mark his life forever. The city glowed with amber lights, store windows wrapped in warm tones, and families hurried home with pies and gratitude. But Theodore wasn't thinking about gratitude. He was thinking about image, status, and the next door he wanted to climb through. And Elena Gracefield didn't fit in that world. She was simple, gentle, and deeply rooted in faith. Everything he once found comforting, now inconvenient. Her hands carried stories of service, prayer, and quiet love, while his carried ambition and noise. Elena loved him without demanding anything. But Theodore believed he needed more than what her humble world could offer. He mistook her softness for lack, and her faith for weakness. The break happened in the calmest hour of the evening, right as the Thanksgiving decorations were going up on her street. Elena remembered the smell of cinnamon in the air, the warm glow of candles in windows. The moment should have felt peaceful. Instead, it felt like winter arriving early. Theodore spoke with coldness that didn't belong to him, but pride had already borrowed his voice. "I need a life that matches where I'm going," he'd said, unable to look directly into her eyes. A life with sharper edges, higher ceilings. A woman who looked like the world he wanted to impress. He didn't realize he was walking away from the one person who prayed for him more than she prayed for herself. Elena didn't argue. She simply stood still, shoulders trembling under the weight of goodbye. Her silence frightened him more than her words could have, because silence meant acceptance. And acceptance meant she wouldn't chase him. Theodore left her doorstep with a heart he assumed was unbreakable. He didn't dare look back. If he did, he might have seen what he was really abandoning. Not a simple woman, but a sanctuary he didn't yet understand. In the days that followed, he stepped into a world soaked in luxury. Parties with crystal glasses, curated smiles, and empty laughter. A new companion on his arm. Glamorous, admired, everything society applauded. He told himself he had upgraded. He told himself he finally belonged. But even in the brightest rooms, Theodore sensed a faint hollowness following him like a shadow. The kind that appears when a man trades calling for applause. He drowned it with noise, attention, and deals. He pushed away memories of Elena's calm voice reading scripture on Sunday mornings. He refused to admit he missed it. Thanksgiving drew closer, and the world shifted into gratitude mode. Tables filled, houses glowed, people whispered prayers of thanks. But Theodore felt nothing. His new life was loud, polished, and impressively curated, yet painfully empty. No one prayed for him. No one cared beyond what he provided. He was admired, not loved. Surrounded, but completely alone. At a high-end Thanksgiving gala surrounded by gold decor and clinking glasses, Theodore finally saw the truth. His companion laughed at someone richer. His associates whispered about someone more powerful. And he realized luxury was loyal to no one. Status never stays. He stepped outside for air, the cold breeze biting his skin. Snowflakes drifted across the night like quiet warnings. His heartbeat echoed louder than the music inside. He remembered Elena's kitchen, simple, warm, the smell of apple pie cooling on the counter. A home, not a performance. For the first time, regret scratched the surface of his pride. It whispered the question he had avoided for weeks. Did you leave the right woman or the right life? He wasn't ready to answer, but the question followed him everywhere. Thanksgiving morning arrived with its traditional stillness. The city awakened slowly, wrapped in gratitude and gentle light. Families reunited. Church bells rang in the distance, and Theodore felt the weight of loneliness press against his chest. He sat in his penthouse. Marble floors, tall windows, perfect silence. Not a single sign of celebration. Not a single voice calling his name. Not a single reason to feel grateful. Luxury had never felt so suffocating. In a moment of rare honesty, he whispered a prayer. It wasn't polished or holy. It was raw, broken, and barely audible. God, if you're still there, I don't want to be this man anymore. He didn't know it yet, but God had hurt him the first time his heart cracked. The first time he denied the truth. The first time he tried to replace love with ego. The first time he mistook glitter for gold. Heaven had been waiting. And while Theodore stared out the window at a city celebrating gratitude, God was already preparing the moment that would rewrite his story. A moment that would lead him, unexpectedly, back to the woman he left behind. A woman who never stopped praying for him, even when he didn't deserve it. The Monday after Thanksgiving should have been triumphant for Theodore Hale. New investors, new projects, new promises. But the moment he stepped into his glass-walled office, the atmosphere felt strange, heavy, almost expectant. His assistant avoided eye contact. Phones rang with urgency he couldn't decipher. Something was shifting beneath the surface of his empire. He had built everything on confidence, or at least the illusion of it. But illusions crack quickly. And that morning, the first fracture appeared. The board requested an urgent meeting. Theodore walked into the conference room like a man convinced nothing could touch him. He didn't bring fear. He brought ego. But the faces around the polished mahogany table told another story. No smiles, no warmth. Just tension. We've lost 3 major contracts in 48 hours, the chairman said. And investors are pulling out. The words landed like blows he wasn't prepared for. His carefully curated world trembled. His pride forced him to stand still. He tried to defend himself, to prove he was irreplaceable. But numbers don't negotiate with pride. His empire had been built on reputation, not character. And reputation collapses fast. One by one, his allies distanced themselves. People who once praised him suddenly spoke in past tense. He was brilliant. He used to be reliable. No one in the room saw him as the man in control anymore. When the meeting ended, Theodore left with his jaw clenched and his chest aching. He told himself it was temporary. A storm. A test. Something money could fix. But storms reveal foundation. And his was cracked. Every call he made that afternoon ended with loss. Every email brought bad news. Every attempt to hold his image together slipped through his fingers. That evening he returned to his penthouse, the symbol of everything he thought he needed. But its marble floors echoed louder than usual. Its clean surfaces felt empty, not elegant. Its silence felt hostile. Even the city lights outside couldn't ease the pressure inside his chest. His partner from the luxury world noticed his tension during dinner. But instead of comfort, she offered annoyance. Are we really doing this tonight? I didn't sign up for stress. Her voice cut sharper than he expected, and something inside him sank. He realized she didn't see his soul, only his success. She loved the man with influence, not the man in crisis. She loved the lifestyle, not the life. She loved what he gave, not who he was. And Theodore felt the weight of that truth press on him. The next morning she was gone. No explanation, no goodbye. Just a message. I need something more stable. This isn't for me. It hit him harder than he admitted, not because he loved her, but because she mirrored the choice he once made. He had left Elena for something shinier, and now someone shinier had left him. That irony replayed in his mind like a sermon he couldn't escape. He sat at the edge of his bed staring at his reflection. He didn't see power. He didn't see charm. He saw a man stripped of certainty. Later that week, the final blow came. His company suspended him temporarily, pending further decisions. Theodore tried to maintain dignity, but his hands trembled as he packed his things. Security escorted him out, quietly, respectfully, but undeniably. He stepped into the cold December air with a box in his arms. Snow drifted down like tiny reminders of the humility he had avoided. People on the street moved around him, unaware of the storm inside him. His breath fogged in front of him, shallow and unsteady. Everything he built had collapsed in a single week. In that fragile moment, his thoughts returned to Elena. Not her face, but her faith. The way she prayed over him. The way she believed God could shape a man's character. He had mocked that belief once. Now standing in the cold with the remains of his pride in a cardboard box, he whispered again, not as a man of status, but as a man finally broken enough to listen. God, what do I do now? Theodore wandered through the city for hours, unsure where to go or what to do. His life had been stripped of direction, and the December cold pressed against his skin like a reminder of everything he'd lost. He walked without thinking, just breathing through the ache, until he reached a quiet street he hadn't visited in years. A street filled with memories he'd tried to forget. There, between a bakery and a small antique shop, stood the tiny community bookstore Elena loved. Warm lights glowed through the front windows. A wreath hung on the door, decorated with cranberries and a small ribbon. It looked exactly the same. And yet, everything inside him felt different. He almost walked past it. Pride pulling him forward, shame holding him back. But something stronger than both whispered, "Go inside." Maybe it was memory. Maybe it was regret. Maybe it was God. When he pushed the door open, a soft bell chimed overhead. Warm air and the comforting scent of paper and cinnamon wrapped around him. It felt like stepping into another world, one untouched by the noise of success, one untouched by ego. He felt small again, but safe. He turned toward the counter, and his breath caught. Elena stood there sorting a stack of books with quiet focus. Her hair was slightly longer, tucked behind her ear. Her sweater was simple, warm, familiar, and her presence felt like home. For a moment, he froze. He wasn't ready. He didn't know how to face the woman he had wounded. He didn't know how to hold the weight of his past choices in front of her. But she lifted her eyes, and everything inside him shifted. Elena noticed him immediately. Her expression didn't show shock, anger, or bitterness. Just a quiet stillness, as if God had already prepared her heart. Her hands paused mid-movement. Her eyes softened, not in invitation, but in compassion. "Theodore," she whispered, her voice gentle, almost careful. He swallowed hard, his throat tight. "Hi, Elena." 2 simple words, but his voice trembled under the weight of them. He felt like a man standing before grace itself. The silence between them wasn't heavy. It was healing, the kind of silence where truth has space to breathe. Elena stepped around the counter slowly, not hesitating, just thoughtful. She didn't ask why he was there. She already sensed it. "You look tired," she said softly. Not judgment, not pity, just truth wrapped in kindness. Theodore exhaled for the first time in days. "I've made a mess of everything," he admitted, barely above a whisper. His voice cracked at the edges. He didn't try to look strong. He couldn't anymore. Elena simply nodded, acknowledging the pain without amplifying it. She had always been a safe place. She motioned toward a small table in the corner. "Sit with me for a moment?" Her words were gentle, steady, not an invitation to reconnect, but an invitation to breathe. Theodore nodded, grateful and humbled. He followed her to the table where she once read scripture aloud on quiet mornings. He sat down, hands restless, eyes uncertain. Elena folded her hands over the table, waiting, not rushing him, not pressing him, just being present, something he had forgotten people could be. "I thought I chose a better life," he confessed. His voice broke again. "But I lost everything, and I deserved it." Elena inhaled softly, not shocked, just heartbroken for him. "Theodore," she said quietly, "losing everything isn't the end. Sometimes it's where God begins." Her words struck deep, deeper than she knew. He blinked as emotion rose like waves. She still believed in God's ability to rebuild, even for him. He looked at her, really looked at her, her calm presence, her steady eyes, her quiet strength. He realized what he had traded away and what he might have destroyed. "Elena, I'm sorry." The words fell from him like a confession he had held for too long. She didn't look away. She didn't recoil. She just breathed, absorbing the apology without rushing to answer. After a long moment, she spoke with a softness that felt holy. "I don't know what God is doing, but I'm willing to let him speak first." Theodore felt something crack inside, not breaking, but opening. And for the first time since his world fell apart, he felt the faintest flicker of hope. Theodore returned to the bookstore the next morning, unsure whether he was acting out of desperation or obedience. The December air was crisp, the kind that wakes the heart before the mind. He hesitated at the door, wondering if Elena would see his presence as burden or blessing. But when he stepped inside, she greeted him with a gentle nod. Not warmth, not distance, just quiet acceptance. "I'm not here to intrude," he said softly. "I just don't know where else to be." Elena studied him for a breath, then pointed toward a cart full of boxes. "If you want to stay, you can help me organize the donations." Her tone was simple, yet the offer felt like mercy. He nodded, rolling up his sleeves. It had been years since he touched anything that didn't come with a contract or a price tag. Books were heavier than he expected, dustier than he liked, and more disorganized than his structured world allowed. But they grounded him. Each box demanded humility. Elena watched from across the room as he stumbled through the first tasks. He misshelved categories, dropped a stack of hardcovers, and sneezed at least 5 times. But he didn't complain. He didn't ask for praise. He simply served. Theodore had been a man of million-dollar deals. Yet here he was, on the floor, taping worn boxes and correcting labels handwritten by volunteers. And strangely, it didn't feel beneath him. It felt like healing. Elena approached with a warm cup of tea. "You're doing well," she said. The compliment was small, but it landed deeply. He wasn't used to being seen for effort, only for results. And for the first time in a long time, he felt human again. As the hours passed, conversation between them remained light, almost shy. They spoke about the bookstore, the community, the holiday donations. They avoided the past, not out of avoidance, but out of respect for the present. God was doing something gentle, something patient. Neither wanted to rush it. Around noon, an older woman entered the shop with a cane, struggling to reach a book on the highest shelf. Theodore rushed to help her without hesitation. His instincts surprised even him. The woman smiled at him warmly. "Thanksgiving week brings out kindness, doesn't it?" He swallowed hard. He wasn't sure if kindness was coming out of him or being carved into him. Either way, her words stayed with him. Elena noticed the shift in his expression. She said nothing, but her eyes softened. Later, while sorting a final box, he paused with a worn Bible in his hands. Its pages were lined with notes, prayers, and dates. It reminded him of Elena's old Bible, the one she used to read aloud during Sunday mornings. He ran his thumb over the spine, feeling a tug in his chest. He wondered, would God still speak to a man who had ignored him? Elena walked over quietly. That one was donated by a local pastor. He said it helped him through the hardest season of his life. Theodore nodded slowly, unable to form a response. The weight of the book felt heavier than its pages. He placed it gently on the counter as if handling something holy. Hours later, as they prepared to close, Elena wiped down the tables while Theodore swept the floor. A simple, ordinary moment, yet it felt sacred. A rhythm of humility he didn't know he needed. He felt a strange warmth in his chest. Not comfort, repentance. When they stepped outside, the sun was setting, bathing the street in orange and gold. Elena locked the door, glancing at him. "You worked hard today." He shook his head. "I just did a little." Elena tilted her head gently. A little done with sincerity is more than a lot done with pride. Her words struck deeper than she intended. Theodore looked away, overwhelmed. How many years had he lived doing a lot, yet offering nothing real? They walked a short distance together, their breaths forming clouds in the chilly air. People around them carried bags of groceries, pies, and Thanksgiving ingredients. The city smelled like cinnamon, roasted nuts, and holiday hope. It was the kind of atmosphere that softened hearts. Even his. "Elena," he said quietly, stopping near the corner. "I don't expect forgiveness, or anything at all." She turned to him, patient, composed. "I know. But I want to say this anyway," he continued, voice wavering. "I'm not the man I was." Elena inhaled softly, her eyes reflecting both caution and compassion. "I believe people can change," she said, "but true change comes from surrender, not effort." He nodded, swallowing the truth. Surrender. He had no idea how to do that. As they parted ways, Theodore felt something inside him shifting, quietly, painfully, beautifully. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in years he didn't feel lost. He felt led, and God was only beginning. The next morning, Theodore arrived at the bookstore before it even opened. Frost covered the windows, shining like tiny crystals under the soft morning light. His breath made small clouds in the cold air as he waited. He didn't know why he felt so compelled to return, only that something holy was pulling him back, something he had resisted for years. Elena approached from the corner, scarf wrapped around her neck, hair slightly windswept. She paused when she saw him waiting, not surprised, simply observing. "The store opens in 20 minutes, she said gently. "I know," he answered. "I just needed to see you." Her breath caught the slightest bit. She looked away, grounding herself. This wasn't a romantic confession. It was a soul asking for space to heal. A soul she once knew intimately. A soul she feared getting close to again. They stepped inside together, the familiar chime of the door breaking the quiet morning. Elena set down her bag, lit the small lamp behind the counter, and started preparing the store. Theodore stood there awkwardly, unsure where to place himself. He wasn't a customer, he wasn't a stranger, he wasn't yet forgiven. "Elena," he said, voice low and steady, "I need to tell you the truth. All of it." She stilled, hands resting on a stack of new novels. Her shoulders tightened with caution. Not rejection, protection. She turned slowly. "Okay, I'm listening." He took a breath that trembled painfully. "When I left you, I thought I was choosing a better life." He paused, shame tightening his throat. "I thought luxury meant worth. I thought appearances meant success." He looked down. "I was wrong about everything." Elena didn't speak, not yet. She watched him with eyes that held both fire and gentleness, a balance only faith could create. Her silence gave him permission to continue, permission to unravel. "I didn't leave because you lacked anything," he whispered. "I left because I did. I didn't understand love that didn't need to be impressed. I didn't understand a heart that gave without expecting applause." He ran a hand through his hair. "I didn't know how to love someone when I couldn't even love myself." Elena's breath softened. His honesty wasn't dramatic, it was painfully real. He wasn't performing, he was confessing, and his voice carried the weight of a man finally seeing truth. "But I hurt you," he continued. "I walked away as if you were disposable. I traded your prayers for applause, your humility for a spotlight, your love for vanity." Her eyes glistened, not with romantic emotion but with the ache of a wound that had never been fully acknowledged. She swallowed, steadying her heart. "I'm not angry," she said quietly. "I was broken, yes, but not angry." Her voice trembled. "I just didn't understand why I wasn't enough." Theodore felt her words hit him like a blow. He stepped closer, carefully, respectfully. "You were more than enough, more than I deserved. But I wasn't looking for real love. I was chasing validation." Elena's eyes lowered, lashes trembling. She breathed deeply, trying to find balance between past pain and present grace. "Theodore, why now?" she asked softly. "Why come back after all this time?" Her question was honest, vulnerable. He hesitated, then spoke with raw clarity. Because everything I built on pride has collapsed, and what remained was the memory of the only person who ever saw me without needing anything in return. He blinked hard. I came back because God brought me to my knees, and the first face in my heart was yours. Elena closed her eyes for a moment, overwhelmed by the weight of his confession. She wasn't naive. She wasn't rushing. She wasn't ready to trust, but she was ready to listen. I need time, she whispered. I know, he said, voice soft with acceptance. I'm not asking for anything, not forgiveness, not another chance. Just the opportunity to walk the right path this time, even if that path doesn't lead back to you. Her eyes opened, glimmering with something between sorrow and hope. Theodore, healing doesn't happen in a moment, she said gently. But God does work in the pieces we give him. She took a breath. And right now, you're offering him your truth. He exhaled shakily, feeling both exposed and relieved. This wasn't the end, nor was it a new beginning. It was the first honest step forward, a step that didn't promise immediate restoration, but promised possibility. The next week unfolded differently than any Theodore Hale had ever lived. He wasn't waking up to meetings, power suits, or towering expectations. He woke to quiet mornings, the soft hum of the bookstore heater, and tasks no one of his former status would consider important. But humility has a way of rewiring a heart, and Theodore felt himself changing with every small, unnoticed task. He stacked books, swept floors, fixed shelves, repaired loose hinges, and helped customers find stories they didn't know they needed. People in the community began whispering in surprise, whispering in curiosity, whispering in wonder. Is that Theodore Hale? Some asked. The millionaire who used to show up to galas in tailored suits? What is he doing here? In a bookstore. He heard their questions, but they didn't wound him. They humbled him. One afternoon, an elderly man from the community approached him with a wrinkled envelope. Elena told me what you're doing here, he said. I wanted you to have this. Inside was a thank you note, handwritten, shaky, sincere. For the first time in months, Theodore felt tears rise. He wasn't being admired. He wasn't being applauded. He wasn't being used. He was being appreciated for simply serving, and that moved him more than any award he had ever received. Elena watched these changes quietly. She didn't rush affection. She didn't promise anything. But she saw a man becoming softer, steadier, and more grounded. A man shaped not by ego, but by grace. One evening, she found Theodore replacing a broken light bulb in the children's reading corner. He stood on an old wooden stool, struggling to twist the bulb correctly. She laughed softly. You're going to break your neck. He glanced down at her with a sheepish smile. Wouldn't be the worst thing that's happened to me lately. Their conversation flowed easier that day. A little humor, a little vulnerability, a little warmth. Something Elena thought she had buried was beginning to breathe again. Theodore didn't just change inside the bookstore. He started revisiting places and people he had wronged. He apologized. He offered help. He made quiet restitutions no one asked for. He paid outstanding debts he once ignored. He donated to shelters he had overlooked. He helped a struggling small business he had once belittled. People were stunned. This wasn't the Theodore Hale they remembered. Word spread quickly across town, not gossip, but testimony. A story of a man who was learning to kneel. A man whose fall from pride wasn't his ruin but his redemption. A man some began calling the prodigal of Briar Creek. The name stung, but also guided him. Meanwhile, Elena found herself battling unexpected emotions. She admired the change in him. She respected his growth, but fear whispered, "What if he breaks your heart again?" Faith whispered, "Let God lead, not fear." One snowy afternoon, as Theodore carried in a box of new children's books, he paused near the doorway. Snowflakes melted on his coat, softening his usual sharp appearance. "Elena," he said gently, "can I talk to you about something?" Her heart tightened. "Of course." He set the box down and wiped his hands nervously on his jeans. "I want to thank you," he began, "for letting me stay here, For letting me serve. For letting me try again. Elena's eyes softened. She sensed something deeper coming. You didn't owe me kindness, he continued. And you definitely didn't owe me a second chance at dignity. His voice grew quiet. But being here, it's given me something I didn't know I needed. Elena waited, breath held gently between hope and caution. It's given me a place to become someone new, he said. Not for you, not for the town, for God, and for myself. The sincerity in his voice was unlike anything she had heard from him before. It made something inside her tremble. Elena stepped closer, her hands lightly brushing the edge of the counter. Theodore, growth is beautiful, but growth takes time, and trust takes even more. He nodded. I know, and I'm not rushing anything, but his eyes held a quiet longing that stilled her breath. As they closed the bookstore that evening, their hands brushed while turning off the final lamp. A simple, accidental moment, but it sent warmth through both of them. Not passion, not possession, but the fragile beginning of hope. It happened on a Thursday morning, just as the bookstore opened. Theodore was arranging a display of Christmas devotionals when he heard the chime of the door. He expected a customer from the neighborhood, maybe one of the children who came for story hour, but the moment the tall figure walked in, his stomach tightened. It was Marcus Sterling and his former business partner. Marcus scanned the bookstore with an expression stuck somewhere between confusion and disbelief. "This is where you've been hiding?" he asked. His tone wasn't cruel, just stunned. He looked from the shelves to Theodore's simple flannel shirt. "This is different." Theodore straightened his shoulders, trying to stay steady. "It's where I'm supposed to be." Marcus raised a brow, amused. "In a bookstore? Doing volunteer work?" But Theodore didn't flinch. Elena watched the exchange from behind the counter. She recognized Marcus instantly, the kind of man who moved through rooms assuming they belonged to him. His presence made her heartbeat tighten with old memories of the world Theodore once chose. The world she was terrified he might return to. Marcus wasted no time. "We need you back," he said, leaning in. "The board made a mistake. Investors are pressuring us. The company's future is shaky without your leadership." Theodore froze. "The past is loud when it wants to reclaim you. We'll reinstate your position immediately," Marcus continued. "Double the salary, full authority, your penthouse, your status, everything." The words hit him like warm temptation. Familiar, powerful, dangerous. For a heartbeat, Theodore felt the old world tug at him. The world his pride once worshipped. Elena's breath hitched. She tried not to stare, but her chest tightened. This wasn't jealousy. It was fear. Fear of becoming a chapter he closed again. Fear of losing the man God was rebuilding. "The company needs you, Theo," Marcus pressed. "It's falling apart without your voice." Theodore looked down at his hands. Hands once used for power, now used for service. He thought of the bookstore, of Elena, of God's quiet work in him. He stepped back, creating space between himself and the life he once idolized. "I'm not that man anymore," he said softly. Marcus blinked, surprised. "What are you talking about?" "I'm rebuilding, but not the way you think," Marcus scoffed. "You're choosing this tiny charity shop over a multi-million-dollar empire." "It's not a charity shop," Theodore replied. "It's where God started healing me." The admission startled even him. Marcus shook his head. "This is absurd. You're throwing away everything you built." Theodore felt the weight of his words, but not the truth. Because for the first time he saw what he had truly built, a tower of pride with hollow foundations. Elena finally stepped forward, her voice steady. "Maybe he isn't throwing it away," she said. "Maybe he's choosing something better." Her courage surprised even her. Marcus frowned, clearly unimpressed. "You can't be serious," Marcus muttered to Theodore. "You're doing all this because of her?" The question stung, not because it was offensive, but because it exposed an old pattern. Theodore once let the world decide the value of Elena's heart. He wouldn't make that mistake again. "This isn't about her," Theodore answered firmly. "But she is part of what God used to wake me up." Elena's breath caught, her eyes softening. Marcus stared, baffled by the spiritual language he didn't understand. Pride never recognizes humility. The answer is no, Theodore said. I'm not going back. His voice didn't tremble. It didn't seek approval. It came from a place of surrender. Marcus exhaled sharply, clearly frustrated. You're making a mistake. Maybe, Theodore replied gently, but it's finally a mistake I'm willing to make with God. Not my ego. Elena felt something inside her melt. This man was not the Theodore she once lost. Marcus turned toward the door, muttering under his breath. Before leaving, he glanced back at Elena with a dismissive smirk, as if she were beneath the world Theodore once lived in. But Theodore stepped closer to her instinctively. A silent declaration, a quiet choosing. When the door closed behind Marcus, the bookstore felt lighter, almost sacred. Elena looked at Theodore, her eyes full of something fragile, hope trying to trust again. He exhaled slowly, trembling but resolute. I'm not going back to who I was. And for the first time, Elena believed him. December deepened, wrapping the town in soft white snow and golden lights. The bookstore glowed with warm Christmas decor, filled with customers buying gifts and stories. But inside Theodore's heart, another kind of season was unfolding. A season of truth, a season of surrender, a season of becoming the man he should have been all along. Ever since Marcus visited, Theodore sensed a shift in himself. The temptation of his old world had exposed what truly ruled his heart. And his answer, his no, was the first time he chose God's voice over his ego. But humility doesn't end with a single decision. It grows with each new step. That week, Theodore spent his evenings writing letters of apology to people he had wounded. Not emails, not text messages, handwritten letters, vulnerable, unpolished, sincere. For every envelope sealed, a layer of pride fell away. The more he apologized, the lighter he felt. The old Theodore had been a man of image. The new one was becoming a man of integrity. Elena saw it, not in his words, but in his posture, his patience, his presence. Humility had settled into him, not as punishment, but as healing. She admired it more than she expected. One snowy evening, Elena invited him to stay after closing. Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled slightly as she locked the door. Theodore, we need to talk, she said. Not out of fear, out of clarity. He nodded, heart pounding. They sat in the reading corner, surrounded by children's books and warm yellow light. Elena folded her hands in her lap, gathering courage. I see the change in you, she began, and I'm grateful. Truly. Her eyes softened with honesty. But I can't pretend the past didn't hurt me. Her voice trembled. The day you chose luxury over me, it broke something I didn't know how to repair. Theodore lowered his head, breathing deeply through the ache. He deserved every word. I'm not asking you to forget, he whispered, or to choose me again, or to rush anything. He looked up, eyes glistening. I only want to live in a way that honors what I destroyed, and honors what God is rebuilding in me. Elena exhaled, as if releasing years she had carried alone. Theodore, I don't want the man you were. I don't want the version who left. She paused. But this man, the one who serves, who kneels, who apologizes, this is the man my heart can learn to trust again. Her words didn't promise a fairy tale. They promised truth. Theodore's breath hitched, emotion rising like a tide he couldn't stop. Elena, I want to be the man God meant for me to be, with or without a future with you. She reached for his hand, gently, hesitantly. Their fingers met like a prayer being answered in slow motion. You once replaced me with luxury, she said softly. But maybe God allowed it, so he could replace your pride with purpose. Theodore closed his eyes, overwhelmed. Snow fell softly outside the window, thick and quiet. The world seemed to slow down, sacred, tender, expectant. Theodore, she whispered, are you ready to walk in a life you don't control anymore? A life God shapes, not your ambition? He nodded without hesitation. Yes. For the first time, yes. His voice trembled with holy fear and holy freedom. Elena smiled, small, warm, real, the kind of smile he once took for granted. Now it felt like grace itself. They stood together, the bookstore lights casting a soft glow across the room. Elena stepped closer, her voice barely above a breath. Then maybe we can walk forward slowly, carefully, with God leading this time. His heart throbbed with hope, not the shallow hope of desire, but the steady hope of redemption. He nodded again. And then, with courage he had never possessed before, Theodore knelt. Not in grand gesture, not in dramatic performance, but in humble surrender. To God first, to truth second, to healing always. Elena, thank you for letting me begin again. Tears filled her eyes as she placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, not out of pity, but out of reverence. Because a man kneeling in humility is rarer than diamonds, more valuable than gold, and more beautiful than wealth. Theodore, she whispered, stand. We walk this together. And he did, slowly, gratefully. As they prepared to leave, Theodore paused by the door. Outside, the world was covered in white, a blank canvas of grace. Do you think? He began, then hesitated. Elena turned to him, patient. That God can turn our ashes into something beautiful? Elena stepped beside him, her breath forming clouds in the cold air. He already is, she whispered, and whatever he writes from here will be better than anything pride ever promised. Together, they stepped into the snow, not as who they used to be, but as who God was shaping them to become. There are stories that begin with love and stories that begin with loss, but the ones that change us forever begin with surrender. Theodore Hale walked away from everything that mattered, believing luxury could fill the silence of an unhealed heart. But when pride finally collapsed, God led him back, not to the life he wanted, but to the life he needed. A life built on humility, truth, and a love restored by grace, not desire. Elena didn't receive back the man who left her. She received the man God reshaped in the valley. A man who learned that wealth can buy attention, applause, admiration, but it can never buy peace. And it can never replace the kind of love that kneels before God before it ever stands before anyone else. Their story reminds us that God never wastes a fall. He uses broken pieces to rebuild foundations stronger than before. He replaces pride with purpose, regret with redemption, and endings with new beginnings only He can write. What pride tore apart, God stitched together with a gentleness only heaven knows. And maybe that's what your heart needed tonight. A reminder that you are never too lost, too late, or too broken for God's mercy. If He can rebuild a man who once worshipped luxury, He can restore whatever your soul has been carrying. All He needs is the peace you're ready to surrender. If this story touched your heart, don't leave yet. Let God continue speaking to you. Subscribe now so you never miss another story of faith, redemption, and second chances. Your heart belongs here. Your healing belongs here. And your story, God is still writing it.